I'm 81 years old. I didn't think I would live this long, and I certainly didn't think I would still be carrying this much with me. At this age, people expect you to talk about gratitude, about blessings, about how lucky you feel just to wake up. And I do feel those things sometimes. But what sits closest to me now isn't gratitude. It's a lesson I ignored for most of my life, even though it kept tapping me on the shoulder again and again. I thought I had time. That was the lesson. I thought time was patient. I thought it waited. These days, my mornings are slow. My hands shake when I button my blouse. I forget why I walked into a room. I hear the house settling at night, and sometimes it sounds like someone sighing. There's a lot of quiet here. Too much, maybe. Quiet gives you space to remember things you didn't mean to save. When I was young, I didn't see life as something fragile. I saw it as something long, stretching, full of chances that could always be picked up later, like a book you leave face down on the table, certain you'll come back to it. I didn't rush love. I didn't rush saying what mattered. I didn't rush being present. I was busy being responsible, busy being dependable, busy doing what made sense on paper. I grew up learning that a good woman keeps things together. She doesn't complain, she doesn't dwell, she moves forward. And I did that very well. I kept moving. In my 20s, I married a man who was kind enough and serious enough and safe enough. He wasn't a bad man. That matters to say. He worked hard. He didn't drink too much. He never hit me. Back then, those things counted for more than they should have. I told myself love would grow. I told myself comfort was its own kind of happiness. And for a while, that was true. Or at least true enough. We bought a house before we really knew each other. We had children before we had hard conversations. We filled our days with schedules and obligations and noise so we wouldn't have to listen too closely to ourselves. There were moments when something inside me went quiet in a way that felt wrong. I remember standing at the sink, washing dishes, watching my reflection in the window at night. I remember thinking, is this it? And then feeling ashamed for even asking. I didn't think those thoughts mattered. I thought they were selfish. I thought wanting more was ungrateful. So I ignored them. I told myself there would be time later to figure things out, when the kids were older, when work slowed down, when things settled. Things never really settle. They just change shape. My children grew, as they do, slowly at first, then all at once. One day they were asking for bedtime stories, and the next they were asking for the car. I was proud of them. I still am. But I was tired, so tired. I was always preparing for the next thing, instead of being inside the thing I was already living. Packing lunches while thinking about dinner, folding laundry while worrying about bills, sitting at school plays thinking about errands. I showed up. That's important. I showed up. But I wasn't always there. There were evenings my daughter wanted to talk, really talk. I could feel it. She would linger in the doorway, twisting her fingers, asking small questions that weren't really about what she was asking. And I would say, "Not tonight, honey. I'm exhausted. Tomorrow." Tomorrow felt endless then. Tomorrow is a word that changes meaning as you age. By the time I was in my 40s, my marriage had become something polite and hollow. We moved around each other like furniture. We knew each other's habits better than each other's hearts. We stopped fighting, which I mistook for peace. I told myself this was maturity. I told myself passion was for younger people. I told myself stability was the prize. I was wrong. The cost of ignoring yourself is subtle. It doesn't arrive with sirens. It comes in small withdrawals, in laughter that fades quicker, in conversations that never quite reach the surface, in a feeling of being slightly misplaced in your own life. I still remember a moment that should have changed everything, but didn't. I was 52. My mother had just died. We were cleaning out her house, my sister and I. opening drawers filled with old receipts and handwritten notes and things she thought she'd need later. Later never came for her. I found a letter she had written but never sent. It was folded neatly, tucked into a cookbook. It was addressed to no one in particular, just thoughts, regrets, things she wished she'd said. I remember holding that paper and feeling a sharp, clear thought. I don't want to end up like this. And then I went home and did exactly what I had always done. I stayed busy. I stayed quiet. I stayed careful. Life kept moving, because it always does. My children left. My husband retired. We spent more time together than ever and somehow felt further apart. Conversations became about appointments and weather. We watched television in the evenings, side by side, not touching. Sometimes I would look at him and try to remember the man I married. Sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. Then he got sick. Illness rearranges everything. It strips life down to its bones. Schedules vanish, pretenses disappear. All that's left is what's real and what's unfinished. I took care of him. Of course I did. I learned medications and routines and hospital hallways. I held his hand when he was afraid, even though we hadn't held hands in years. There were moments of tenderness that surprised me. Moments where I thought, maybe this is our second chance. Maybe now we'll finally say the things we avoided. But sickness has its own timeline. It doesn't wait for emotional readiness. He died on a quiet Tuesday morning. No dramatic last words. Just a breath that didn't come back. I was 73. After the funeral, people told me how strong I was, how devoted, how lucky I was to have had so many years. I nodded. I thanked them. I accepted their casseroles. What I didn't say was that I felt hollow in a way grief alone doesn't explain. I wasn't just mourning him. I was mourning everything we never became. That's when the lesson finally landed, heavy and undeniable. Time does not reward patience. It only rewards attention. All those years I thought I was being sensible, responsible. I was actually postponing my life. I kept waiting for the right season to speak honestly, to choose presence over productivity, to sit with discomfort instead of smoothing it over. The right season never came. Now, at 81, my world is smaller. My body tells me what it can and can't do. My calendar is mostly medical appointments and quiet afternoons. Friends disappear one by one, sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly. I think about the conversations I never finished, the apologies I softened, the love I rationed, like it was something I might run out of. I wish I had understood earlier that love grows when you spend it. I wish I had known that being needed is not the same as being known. I wish I had asked harder questions, even if they made people uncomfortable, even if they changed things, especially if they changed things. There are things that can't be fixed now. That's the hardest part. Time doesn't circle back to offer revisions. It simply moves on, indifferent and steady. I can't go back and sit on the edge of my daughter's bed one more time when she was 14 and scared and pretending she wasn't. I can't reach into my marriage and pull out the version of us that might have existed if we'd been braver. All I can do is tell the truth now, while I still can. If you're listening to this and you feel that quiet nudge inside you, the one that says something matters and you keep putting it off, please don't assume it will wait. It won't. Not because life is cruel, but because it's alive. It keeps moving whether you show up or not. You don't need to burn your life down. You don't need dramatic gestures. You just need to be honest sooner than feels comfortable. To sit when you'd rather rush. To speak when you'd rather smooth things over. I ignored that lesson for too long. I thought there would always be another chance to say it better, do it deeper, love more fully. Now my days are quiet, and I live with the sound of what wasn't said. I still find moments of peace. I still find beauty. But there's a tenderness to this age that comes from knowing exactly how much things cost when you delay them. When I go to bed at night, I sometimes whisper things into the dark. Not prayers exactly, just words. Words I wish I had practiced earlier. If this meant something to you, If it stirred anything at all, don't tuck it away for later. Later is not promised. Presence is the only thing that ever really was. That's the lesson I ignored, and I hope, somehow, you won't.